In this video, I'm going to teach you how to ride rocks. So first, we're going to talk about climbing rocks as if they are a hill climb. Second, we're going to talk about gliding over the top of rocks when it's just a flat straight full of rocks. And finally, we're going to talk about challenging ourselves with big, huge rocks and how to get all the way through them. How would I approach these rocks? So we need to hit the rocks with enough speed that we don't have to accelerate on the rocks. And then if we're accelerating too aggressively, we're going to wheel spin and lose control of the bike. But we also don't want to go so fast that we hit one of these big old rocks and we get thrown over the front of the bike. So approaching these quite large rocks, we'd actually want to start at quite a steady, slow speed, but with enough momentum that we are going to be able to get up to the top. And a technique we can use, which is a little bit advanced, that can really help us hold traction over these rocks is called loading the flywheel. So how we do this is at the base of the rocks, we engage the clutch, we rev the engine. This will be loading power to the flywheel. And then when we release the clutch, we're releasing the throttle. So we're not accelerating, we're actually decelerating up the rocks. That ensures that we have a lot of traction. But this technique is all about timing. We need to release the clutch as our front wheel is hitting the first part of the climb, and that should give us a little boost up the hill. Being able to load the flywheel is all about timing, and we actually have a clip here of Nathan trying to do this. And his timing is slightly off, so that's why he doesn't make it all the way to the top. And another thing he struggles with is his head doesn't move in line with the acceleration. So when you accelerate, you need to actually remove your body and your head forwards so you're staying in control of the bike. If you accelerate and you're not accelerating with your body and you're not coming forward, then what happens is you fall back, and then that's when you lose control. Nathan very nearly made it to the top. In the end, he pushed it up and made it. But one of the things he could have done better is using his body to come with that acceleration of the motorbike. If it's twice as high as this, so for example, if we come around the side, then it's too high to just ride straight up. And the rocks are also too big. They're a bit bigger than this side. So in that case, then it's easier to maybe zigzag. So we need to ride across, lift the front wheel up, wheelie to the side. I've got another video where I talk about zigzagging, watch that there. And that will allow you to climb a lot higher, rockier hill. When you get stuck, then clutch control comes in, and you may need to slip the clutch to such a way that you can kind of edge up there without spinning the rear wheel. So I've already talked about losing traction on the rear tire when we're going up rocks. One way to help hold traction is actually to carry low revs while you're going up. So you can get your speed on the bottom when you're going over flat ground. That's when you want to do your acceleration. And as we're climbing the hill, really low revs is going to stop us wheel spinning. As soon as that wheel spins, that's going to chuck the bike sideways and we're going to lose control. So we don't want that. If we don't make it to the top and then we're trying to push the bike up or trying to get going again, if you rev the bike, rev the nuts off it, you're just going to spin and throw rocks onto the floor. The best thing to do is just very low revs and allow that wheel to get traction. Just tractor it up there. Now, when we're riding flat rocks like this, the most important thing is holding a steady body position, which is really hard because every crack and bump we hit is going to throw our body side to side, backwards and forwards. But what we want to aim to do is stay in that attack position. So we want to be stood up on the balls of our feet and let our natural hinge points, which are our ankles, do a lot of the work. If the suspension is not working properly, then you're going to get bucked like a buckaroo through these rocks. And that's what happens if you sit down on the bike or you take your legs off. The suspension will not work in unison. If we're stood on the bike properly, using our ankles as hinge points, that will enable our suspension to work in unison and work properly. The next thing to think about on rocks like these is clutch control. So we're not going to be struggling with traction too much, but what we want to do is use the clutch to control the speed of the bike. If we've just fully released the clutch and we're going too fast, then we're going to be hitting the rocks and going everywhere. So we want to control the speed with the clutch and not so much with the brakes, because again, if we hit the brakes in one of these big rocks or cracks, that's when you're going to go over the bars. So you may be feathering the rear brake to control the speed, but the best way to control the speed is actually being on the biting point of the clutch. For those who don't know, the best way to have control with the clutch is to not do road riding style and use all 4 fingers on the clutch, because then you don't have enough fingers on the handlebars. Really, I want to aim to just use 1 or maximum 2 fingers for the clutch, because that enables you to have more fingers on the handlebars handlebars and to have more control. Because when we're off-roading, especially this kind of off-roading, the bars are going to be shaking and it's very easy to lose a hand. So actually we only need 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch. Another really important thing to help us hold traction is applying pressure into the foot pegs. That drives weight down into the rear tire and enables us to stop wheel spinning, and it also makes the bike less likely to spit out sideways. So often when we're riding over rocks and we're being flown all over the place, the natural instinct is to take our feet off and start paddling because we feel safer. But when we do that, we have less weight into the rear tire, and that means less traction. So if you do feel like you need to take a foot off because you're losing control, the technique you need to use is 1 foot, dab, and then back onto the foot peg. You may do it over an extended period of time, a few times, but you want to be the dab to be quick and then the weight to go straight back onto the foot peg. That enables you to maintain traction. So the final thing I'm going to talk about on these kind of rocks is line choice. And now it may sound stupid to avoid the big holes and avoid the huge rocks. It sounds like common sense, but when you're in a dangerous situation and you're losing control of the bike, often what happens is you get target fixation. So you see the hole or the big rock, you stare at it and you ride straight into it. So you need to be confident and aware of where you're riding. Where you look, you're going to go. So be hyper focused on where you want to go. Now, if you need to swerve to avoid big holes and big rocks and you need to like zigzag and turn left and right, my advice would actually be do not do that. What you should do is you can actually ride straight over the big rocks if you hold steady power. But if it's very easy to avoid them with just slight leaning, then you definitely should. If it involves a huge amount of turning, then what's going to happen is you're going to actually lose control of the bike and you're going to start losing balance. So it's better to just ride over big holes if that's the straightest line. So ultimately we want to go as straight as we can without hitting the biggest holes that we can. It may sound obvious, but when you watch riders try it, they don't often do that. When we're riding big rocks, it's a very different style and technique to what we just spoke about when we're riding smaller rocks or rocky climbs. Momentum is no longer important. We don't need to carry a load of speed to keep getting through the rocks because unless you're Billy Bolt or Graham Jarvis, you're probably going to crash trying to carry speed through these rocks. If you're at my level or any lower, really we want to pick and choose our lines. So we want to ride at a steady speed that we can control and we're not crashing and dropping the bike all the time. So the most important thing with big rocks is line choice. So find the rocks with flat spots where you can hold traction on the rear tire and avoid big holes and big cracks. And if there's big dips like this, obviously we're going to get our fork stuck in them or our wheel stuck in them. So just take your time and pick and choose the nicest lines. That's the most important thing with big rocks like this. Okay, the next thing is being able to hold power so we're not sliding back down the rock and falling into the crack. So how do we do this? We want to hold steady power with the throttle and we want to stay on the biting point of the clutch. That will prevent us falling into the cracks and getting stuck. Now the final technique I want to talk about is popping wheelies. Lifting the front wheel up can actually enable you to have more weight and pressure on the rear wheel. So if your rear wheel's spinning, pop a little wheelie and that can get you unstuck. Also, if you need to pivot the bike so you can find a nicer line out of the big rocks, using a little wheelie to pop the front tire can help massively. If you enjoyed this video, check out this rocky hill climb on screen now. And if there's any areas of off-road riding that you're struggling with, leave it in the comments and we can do a video with it. Thank you. Just asked Nathan to do a wheelie.
I'm fucked.
It went well.
I'm fucked. I'm done.